Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our digital discovery webinar series. My name is Mark Sewell. I'm a consultant at Catalyst Connection, and today we're going to be introducing you to a very interesting provider. OpsReady provides a operational, operations platform for manufacturing, and that the goal is to provide better guidance to operations, better visibility to management, and to address some of those gaps that some of your other tools and systems might leave you with. Today we're going to have three presenters: Ted Duffield, Dave Girl, and Connor Bowie, and they are from the sales and business development team at OpsReady. And they're going to give you a great introduction to their system and how it can help your operations. Today is the first, as I mentioned, first digital discovery webinar series for the Smart PA program. And this is a Department of Energy program. It's statewide, and the goal is to support small and medium manufacturers with smart manufacturing deployment to help their operations continue and grow. The team for the program is statewide, and as many of you know, Catalyst Connection is a part of the National MEP, Manufacturing Extension Partnership Program, and we are also part of the Pennsylvania IRC, or Industrial Resource Center program. Both have the same mission, and that is to help small manufacturers grow their business, create additional jobs, and be successful. This program is going to provide a variety of resources that can help manufacturers within our region and the whole state of Pennsylvania for this program. That starts with on-site technology assessments to identify the best opportunities based on your circumstances, technical assistance, in some cases free, in other cases subsidized to keep the costs low and affordable for you. We also have in this program a mini grant program where companies can apply for a grant of up to $5,000 to support a portion of their implementation costs. And one of the partners in our program is the Penn State Digital Foundry in New Kensington, and an additional resource available to manufacturers participating is no-cost training there at the Digital Foundry. There are many areas that will fit the guidelines for the program. Essentially, these advanced technologies, if your business, your circumstances provide a situation where technology and improvements in these areas can help you, then this is a program that you should consider. And again, those resources and combinations of those resources will hopefully help you implement the improvements that you need successfully and smoothly. We will have additional sessions, as you know, and you'll be notified about those. This session is being recorded, and during the session, if you have questions, you're all muted right now, but during the session, and if you have questions, if you could put those either in the question or the chat section, we will see those, and we'll make sure that our presenters have an opportunity to address your questions at the end of their presentation. And now I'd like to turn it back over to Ted and Dave and Connor right now.
Thanks, Mark. Really appreciate it, and very, very happy to be partnering with Catalyst around this. Dave, if we want to flip through the agenda here, so we know that this is a short snippet in a 30-minute time frame. We want to make sure we know everybody's busy. We want to make sure that we can provide the most amount of value, both from an industry perspective and to give you guys a sneak peek into how OpsReady can potentially help your company and how we're helping other manufacturers across North America. So what we wanted to cover off on here first is just to run through what we are seeing in the market. Our team takes a very consultative approach to any client relationship, and with that, we get the ability to learn about what manufacturers are facing in the market and some of the challenges that they have. So we want to talk today about what we're seeing around predictive preventative maintenance. We want to talk about some of the use cases we've seen around non-conformance and what that can ultimately mean to your company. And then we want to talk a little bit about how we can reduce costs around some of those fringe processes. And we're going to talk a lot around what is manual in your facilities and how we can address that with really a low investment that can provide value to the organization very quickly. Now, one of the things I'll say as we go through this is that the operations platform at OpsReady, it can work for organizations like United States Steel, like Kruger, the multi-billion-dollar manufacturers that are out there. But we've got a large client base that sits around, that $5 million plus from a manufacturing standpoint, where we can come in and we can act as that system of record, or really the only solution that you would need to bring in order to do things where it's faster to deploy, it's more cost effective, and it really acts as an outsourced component to your business. So you can focus on what you're good at from a manufacturing standpoint, and OpsReady can bring in the technology that's there to support that. We'll jump in, we'll show you a bit of a live example here on how some of our organizations are doing it, just so you can get a look and feel around what this operations platform can provide and why it's been so disruptive on the market. And then we'll open it up for some questions, discovery, and some ways that we can evaluate your business and see if this is something that can drive a return for you. So with that, Dave, I'm gonna pass it over to you. And why don't we start to walk through what we're seeing on market today and what some of our customers have brought to us from a challenge perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ted. And yeah, as we jump into the new year, right, we're gonna continue on a lot of the trends that we were seeing last year. A ton of new tools that are coming out to the market, but a lot of them being single-use solutions and trying to figure out how they fit within your organization. Additional competition coming in, as it always is, but an increased focus on sustainability, from sometimes shareholders, sometimes from vendors, and sometimes your clients as well. With that, we're finding that even with all these new challenges, it continues to pile on to your old systems and having a lot of inefficiencies and old processes, and I'm relying on old technology to handle the new challenges. So some of the things that we saw a ton last year, focused and shifting from reactive maintenance over into preventative, and finally, predictive maintenance. A lot of companies tackling non-conformance, something that's typically been manually done on the floor, and either receiving calls from clients or noticing something on the shop floor and reporting that, but typically it's manual. There's manual approval processes, and then secondary processes, as Ted was talking about, right? What are those things that aren't directly on the manufacturing line, but that are surrounding your organization and your operations, that you can find a ton of value in, and improve your turnaround times, reduce your costs, and just improve your operations overall. It's an area I'm passionate about. I can't wait to jump into that section. But let's start first with the rise of predictive and preventative maintenance. Connor, would you mind speaking to this one here quickly?
Yeah, so downtime and rush orders to get your equipment back up and running speaks for itself. When you're constantly reacting to these challenges rather than being proactive, it creates a lot of time wasted, a lot of cost wasted. So we see a lot of companies that maybe have these addressed through a system, but it's the lack of real-time data or fragmentation in those existing systems where part of the maintenance procedure might be addressed, but a more holistic approach would be much better. So one of the solutions we're seeing is really just getting ahead of the curve is the key, and systemizing some of these much better. So things like dynamic and flexible maintenance procedures that aren't as rigid, so you can adapt to new challenges. Things like IoT sensors to monitor equipment, which then triggers workflows to address some of those in more of a predictive and preventative nature, and phased approaches. So instead of overhauling mass system integration for your maintenance, phased approaches to ensure adoption is effective and best practices can be optimized over time. So you can look at how to make those adjustments through your processes.
Yeah, and I think a really great example of this, we are working at a major steel manufacturer, and one of their asset categories being substations. A large electrical building that has dozens of sub assets within it. Previously, these were all being inspected manually. There was no schedules. They were really just going around, and when the grid went down or there was some sort of issue, they had somebody going out and completing a work order. Now, what we're able to do is schedule schedule tasks every month to go in there and record all of the maintenance activities that are happening, do inspections to go, if there's anything that's out of whack, that we can go there and correct those issues right there on site. But with doing that and shifting a lot of that off reactive maintenance, we began to reduce costs. We started to see trends and fix things before they were fully creating operational disruptions. But the next part there, right, in that phased approach that Connor mentioned, is the ability to go in and set up that schedule, get that going. But the next step, let's get into predictive. Let's go put in their case, some vibration sensors and some humidity sensors, so they could see remotely if there were any issues, and those would automatically notify them to get them in there and further predict when maintenance activities were required. That's just being one example that we're seeing. And if there are any questions, feel free to come to us with any of those specifically. We love to kind of dig into those details. But let's jump into another section, right? This is the process of non-conformance, right? Typically, if there's something wrong with your product, or some calibration is out of whack, when we go, typically it's that there's material defects there. Maybe somebody didn't follow the process, and therefore your end product isn't how it was intended. Typically, these are manual processes where you go in there, record them, and it's probably not attached to the asset. There's a lot of back and forth with paperwork between departments, a lot of phone calls between clients to make sure that everything is made right. And this causes errors, right? It causes delays, it causes waste, and ultimately, it can hurt your reputation, and this causes lost revenue. And whether you have to replace that part again, it's going to hurt your bottom line. So what we propose is that you go and leverage automation, right? Make sure that when you report a non-conformance report, make sure that everybody who needs to know is notified in the right order, that proper approvals and proper follow-up steps are followed. Now let's digitize this workflow so that we can do things like capture photos of this, so we can trend it over time and start to see if we're seeing the same defects. Let's streamline this process so that we're not following the whole big process of improving things for really small defects or one-offs or things that we don't need to get into this continuous improvement cycle. I think a really good example with this is we were working with a small manufacturer, just over $5 million, providing small specialized tools to the oil and gas industry. For them, they had a non-conformance process, and it basically, every time there was an issue, their client would come in and they would fill out a form and put it on somebody's desk. And they had the know-how internally to manage those. But the problem is when they went to go scale. They went to go scale up and sell these products to Europe and over to the Middle East, and those markets wouldn't accept their product with their current level of reporting. So they wanted to go with a digital solution where they could provide all the history of their reports and oblige to those standards that are over there in their new markets. And we went through the implementation to make sure that they could go out and fulfill those requirements. Maybe let's jump over, Connor. I know that you had some thoughts here about some of these secondary processes.
Yeah, and so these are the processes that could be a major pain, but they might get left to the side for a number of reasons, mostly because of bandwidth, or it's not a core focus of your organization. But the key thing here is that if you were able to address them effectively, it could make a major impact on your business, both from a time and cost perspective. So to give you an idea, things like gaps in communication, manual entry for a simple process like custodial management of your facility, might be audit preparation. These are the things that, if you have an existing ERP solution, or just generally it's not a focus of your day-to-day, might get left to the side, and over time is going to incur a ton of costs, a ton of time, and might affect your maintenance procedures as well too, and bleed into other areas. So the solution here mainly is with automation to eliminate repetitive tasks, saving time and labor. So integrating your platforms, integrating your process together to avoid fragmentation. Have your resources essentially focus on your priority work at all times can make a huge difference in the productivity and efficiency of your organization. So how can you give your tools to address these complementary processes in a manner which doesn't take away from the core focus of your business and the day-to-day priorities of your staff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Connor mentioned it briefly, right? That custodial management, and that would fall, into that bottom right magic wand that we have there under miscellaneous, right? This is a process, and we worked with one client to fix their custodial management process. And it was, pretty simple when you think about it, right? We've got a lot of areas that need to be cleaned. What we did is went in with some QR codes so that anybody could record any issues or maintenance requests. And we use, geolocation to automatically prioritize where people needed to go. Just by doing, a couple of small things, including, adding in some fulfillment requests, we were able to improve a mid-sized manufacturer and save them over $120,000 per month just on custodial costs, just by optimizing that one simple fringe process. But then when we look across all of your operations, right, we can start to find that value elsewhere. Right, whether it's your documentation and reporting, maybe you're recording data in a bunch of different systems, and there's people manually putting that together with reports and copying data between one place and another, or they're manually logging maintenance requests or other details out there. Your inventory and supply chain, maybe you're not tracking your consumables like gloves or lubricants or tools that you need to complete your job, or maybe you're getting delays in getting that raw material back. Maybe it's production line inefficiencies, right? Maybe you have standard operating procedures, or pieces of your manufacturing are automated, but maybe for those smaller processes, you lack standard operating procedures, and that's where things fall off the rails. For quality control, maybe you're over inspecting things because you don't trust your processes or your data. Maybe you're using uncalibrated equipment to test your equipment and test your end product. Maybe it's your workforce management, and you're not tracking, employee certifications, or you have manual timekeeping, which is, leading to payroll errors or payroll delays, which can, cause a lot of employee satisfaction issues. Maybe it's waste management. You don't know how much you're scrapping, your rework rates, or disposal of materials. I mean, I could go on and on into collaboration and miscellaneous items we've dealt with, in trying to put this together. Over 200 different fringe processes that have led to bottom line gains for organizations. But that's where we're able to come in, and I'll actually get Ted to, jump in here and kind of talk about how we actually go and find these, these trends that we're talking about, these different processes, and how we actually improve operations.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And I know we've got about 10 minutes left here. So, I want to be brief, but we do want to talk about, what OpsReady is and where it sits in the market. We do want to show you a live example here. To sum this up, guys, I think what we've got is we've had a bit of a late mover advantage here where, we've heard over and over again in our career, my business is unique. And if I buy an ERP solution, I've got to pay hourly to customize that so that it matches my business. Or if I could hire another 3 people to get that information into that ERP solution, we would be in good shape. And we want to flip that around and put that on its head. And this is why the technology has been so disruptive for companies of all sizes. What we have built is a framework. And what that means is that 85% of the OpsReady platform is built. The last 15%, it's configured. So every single one of our customers gets a customized feel without a customized price. And what that framework allows you to do, the first thing is anything data capture. So files, videos, photos, it works on iOS, Android, any mobile device in online and offline mode, and you've got a dedicated website as well. It allows you to do data access. So we say, what lives in Excel right now? What are some of the solutions and where this information lives? Is that tribal knowledge as we scale? Is that an individual that understands something like an SOP or something that's proprietary to the business? Let's put it all in one spot, regardless of where that information is, so it's easier to get stuff done. It's got a location, so it's got a geospatial component. Where are we working within this facility? And everything that you do has a full audit trail around this. So I'm going to show you what areas of operations this covers, but it pretty much works through all of them. Now, what makes this great from a configuration standpoint is that data capture, data access, audit trail, it sits on top of a rule-based workflow engine that we manage through tasks and dashboards. So think about it like a safety net as you scale your organization, right? If I design something, do this, then that automatically needs to trigger an approval. do this, that automatically needs to trigger a review, or it needs to show up in this report, or it needs to trigger a min-max reorder from an inventory perspective. Whatever that workflow is, we configure that engine to say, if this happens, do this next. So when you think about scaling your business, it almost works as a mirror to the way that you've designed that internal process. And if everything's going the way that it should, you can look at things and get a daily, weekly, monthly report, or you can guide folks that are on the facility floor to do this next step and do it in this order. As soon as something goes outside of that, then we're going to be notified. So it's going to direct my attention to those areas of where I need to run my business or where I need to run my facility. And it's going to tell me the way that I've designed it, whether it's working or not. The last piece that I'll leave you with here, because I do want to spend some time on some examples, is that the business model that we've brought to market is fundamentally different than selling a product and billing hourly to customize it. Because it's this framework where 85% of it, this configuration engine, is pre-built, it allows us to deploy quicker, it allows us to be more cost effective, and it makes the solution easier to use. So if we think about things, and we never want to underestimate a change management component, but we also don't want to overcomplicate technology. Technology is there to support your business, not the other way around. And you shouldn't have to change the way that you are doing things because you've adopted a new technology. And that's really that flexibility that allows us to come in and work with organizations. And it's all on a fixed price model. So there's no service hours, you're consulting, unlimited users, you're training. Everything is fully, I guess, baked in to a fixed scope, fixed price. So we think about scaling a business, having that certainty around that, and having the right technology partner that will work as an extension of your team becomes very, very impactful. And we've heard that over and over again, that that's just not something that other platforms are doing in the market. Dave, last piece here. So this is becoming a little bit more granular, but where do we help organizations? And we think about this as, we call them work buckets internally, but to simplify it, we will say operational areas. These are all of the areas that we can come in and work with from an operations standpoint. The one thing I'll highlight here is that if you have existing solutions, what are they good at? Let's keep them. Let's integrate with them. But let's fill in the cracks around what is manual around those solutions today so that it's easier for your staff to get stuff done. It's not a modularized solution. We come in and we look at the scope of work as to what you need from an operations standpoint and what's going to drive that return for you internally. And you could touch on any of these operational areas, because we believe that operations are fully intertwined, right? If you're doing a QA, QC process on your floor, that doesn't mean that somebody doesn't have to do a safety check before they start work that day. And those are the types of things that we say, what is it that's manual? And how do we, I guess, stopgap those solutions that have been implemented already to say, this is what they're good at, but this is where they stop, and this is what's manual around that. And then OpsReady can come in and fill in the cracks. And if there's no solution in place and you're looking to scale your business, then OpsReady can come in and be that solution that can cover off on all of it, right? So Dave, I know we've got probably about, 5 minutes left here. I think it might make sense to jump into the platform. Let's maybe just show a little bit around the look and feel around this, and then we can open it up for a question. So we got about, I think, 4 minutes here, Dave, to wow everyone.
Yeah, well, with that, I'll go through this really quickly, but know as I go through that everything on site is configurable, as Ted was saying. But this is one example of that first challenge, right? Somebody's making that first shift into that preventative maintenance, right? By taking something that was only reactive and creating a schedule that comes out and says, okay, when I go complete my weekly maintenance, how do we simplify that standard operating procedure so that we can know exactly what we have to do on a weekly basis to maintain our equipment? From that data access perspective, what do I need so that I can review and have all the materials that I need to complete that job? And then finally, right, having that audit log of everything that's happening there, as well as the ability, to have a conversation, to mention somebody and ask those questions that you need, or to follow up with your employees. Now, this just being, one quick example and a simplified version to make sure that we can, get through this in good time. Now, the other piece, right, going over, we talked about issues with non-compliance, right? And perhaps that's going to go into your other workflows. This is an example where I'm on my mobile device Once again, all available in offline mode. But if I go to this and I need to, there's an issue with, in this case, a motor that is sitting on my production line. If I want to walk up to that piece of equipment, give it a quick barcode scan, well, now I have the ability to go record those issues, right? And let's make it as simple as possible. Perhaps something is damaged. Perhaps there's an equipment failure, or perhaps I need to send this for warranty. And all I want to do here is just take a quick photo of the piece of equipment so I can say exactly what's going on, or a picture of myself, and get into that quickly as I flip that around. But capture that data directly out there in the field so we can capture it. And then make that
Dave,
flow.
I just want to add a note here, just for context, right? I mean, it can do a lot when we think about those operational areas. And I think what Dave's trying to show you here today is that it has the flexibility, and 95% of what you see on this screen is configured. So if we make an adjustment to the platform, that's done within hours or days. And so, you know, this is an example of how easy the UI is to use. But keep in mind that this will be configured to whatever process and operation you want to mirror internally.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is an example of a client, you know, coming to us with their inventory management as part of that as well, right? And building that safety net where they say, if I've got a minimum threshold and that drops, any of my products drop below that, I want to trust that my system's going to come in and tell me, hey, go reorder that part. And when, or in this case, a consumable. And when I go to reorder this, give me everything I need to go complete that. Give me my, my order form. Give me, my checklist of what to do. Give me details about my vendors so that I can go in there and know who I should be ordering this from, and close all of those things that were questions before and make sure that's all in one place. If we've got our assembly procedures, once again, make sure that I've got access to my drawings, that I have those SOPs, that I have, the parts and equipment that I need to complete that. And finally, give me the ability to go inspect that and close that off from a QA QC perspective. I'll give you one final example when we're talking about some of these fringe processes. And again, when we said, there's hundreds of these, well, this was configured to one of those. Somebody who has to go complete their work and they had a manual process for creating their permits. Well, we've gone ahead and digitized the permit with a simple form that captures, details that used to be captured, on a device. Who's completing this? Where is it happening? And a bunch of details that I won't go through right now. But give me a map on where exactly this is happening within my facility, including statuses of all of this. Let's digitize that permit that even if it's an ugly governmental form or something that you require, we can take that data, render it back out to that. But the really cool piece is just that safety net perspective where we're going back and looking at, okay, when we have that permit, what is that follow-up steps that we need to complete that are gonna, make sure we're compliant with any regulatory needs, and that we ensure that our people are safe. In this case, we're doing firewatch checks, at an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours after, again, with those best practices. And if there's any issues, give me the ability to follow that up and let the system take care of the best practices there.
Yeah, so Dave, I think I want to be cautious here because I know we are at time and some folks might have a hard stop. I think one thing I'd leave it with, guys, is that our team is here to help, and we do really take that consultative approach. So if there's questions around technology or where this could potentially fit, that's certainly something that our team is happy to have a discussion around, and provide some advice, around how this could potentially work and how this could potentially scale. With that, and we'll send a copy of this out after, and we're certainly happy to hang around for some questions if folks have some. Mark, why don't I pass it back to you here, and we can summarize things and talk about some next steps here.
Sure. Well, I think we, even though we're up against our time here, at least one question, maybe two, to get in. When it comes to applying or using your system with preventive and predictive maintenance, how big of a challenge is it for older equipment? A lot of our clients have older equipment.
Yeah, I mean that's a great question, and we went through one that's actually kind of unique with that, where we were looking at motor warranties, the example that Dave showed you there previously. I think it comes down to flexibility is the biggest piece. So you know, previously, let's take a barcode, for example. Previously, barcode, they're pretty expensive. You'd have to go buy a gun and make an investment into actually going out and barcoding your equipment. And what we've been able to do now is actually etch in a barcode or take a $1 industrial sticker that puts on a piece of equipment. You can set that up with your smartphone within a couple of clicks. So if we've got older equipment and we have an understanding of what that maintenance schedule needs to look like, then the system's designed to be configured to mirror that. So we don't have to necessarily have a new piece of equipment or even history around that equipment. We can start tracking an older piece of equipment at any, I guess, life cycle on where that equipment would sit. I mean, Dave, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, just to emphasize there, you know, if it is an older piece of equipment and you've got some, you know, perhaps some files stored on, you know, some software somewhere or manual pieces of paper, those are things we can start today tracking them digitally, but let's go ahead and get that data and make sure that you have one common repository so that you can go in there and look at old PDFs or old, you know, photos of old maintenance records or anything like that in one place.
Pretty common, Mark, I think, as well. I mean, we look at every organization or every business like it's a unique snowflake, because people have stuff in different areas, they've got different systems. And I think part of the approach that we want to take in the market is, as long as you got that information somewhere, or even if it lives just up here, you know, tribal knowledge with an individual, let's digest that and let's get it into the solution so we can start tracking it digitally on a go-forward basis. That's a great question.
Well, that sounds great. I have one more, but I think as you mentioned, we need to be respectful of everyone's time and schedule. I know everyone's busy. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And Ted, Dave, Connor, can you throw some contact information in the chat, or Allie, do we have a link to share with attendees or anything like that? Or do we already have that in our?
I can send out contact information with the recording link to the folks that have participated or registered for the webinar.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Well, again, Dave, Connor, Ted, and all of you who joined us today, and Allie, thanks. Appreciate your attention and your participation today. And we look forward to the next session and talk more about some advanced technologies and how it can help manufacturers. So thanks everybody, and hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much.